I'm an oceanographer. In January this year, I put my 4 dogs into my Prius and I headed to East Boothbay, Maine, to become the president and CEO of the Bigelow Laboratory for Ocean Sciences, an independent research institute that's being threatened by the battle over federal funding for environmental sciences today. In making this move, I gave up an endowed professorship and tenure at a college that I love. I did it because I believe the ocean is in trouble, and that science and independent institutes like Bigelow are key to saving it. And it has to be saved. So do something for me. Everybody take a deep breath. We didn't do that because I was nervous. We did that because the oxygen, and half the oxygen that you just took in, was produced by microscopic organisms in the ocean. And the ocean economy contributes $360 billion to our gross national product every year. No matter where you live in the world, the ocean is important, but it's under threat. It's getting warmer, and warmer water is the fuel for stronger storms like hurricanes. It's becoming more acidic, which means it's harder for things like lobsters or corals to build their shells or structures. The ocean is experiencing rising sea level and collapsing fisheries. And sadly, I could be a real downer and just keep going on and on. Society is demanding answers to these problems, and science needs to provide them. But in many respects, we are ill-equipped to do so. The reality is, the investment we've made in the study of our oceans is far below what it needs to be to address the problems we're facing. So the single message I want to leave with you today is we must increase our investment in the ocean and ocean research. What's at stake is literally the future of humanity. If humanity is going to thrive, we have got to gain the knowledge to restore the oceans and to harness its incredible potential for things like new drugs, food, and energy. I moved to Maine because I want to try to help capture that potential. So here's the story of how I got here. I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And even though we moved to Nashville, Tennessee when I was a little kid, I spent every summer on a lake in far, far northern Wisconsin, where I pretended to be an oceanographer. My love of the ocean came from watching the undersea world of Jacques Cousteau. I'm also a middle child. We tend to be the peacekeepers. I was raised by very conservative parents that I respected and adored, and yet I've spent most of my career working with very liberal people that are like my second family. This means I've spent my whole life trying to see both sides of what are often very contentious issues. And when it comes to the ocean and politics today, there are many. For the last 30 years, I've spent my life studying how microscopic plants and animals that make up the base of the ocean food web use nitrogen. All organisms on Earth need it. As human beings, we get nitrogen from the food we eat. But if you're a microscopic plant in the ocean, you take up dissolved nitrogen in the water around you and bring it in through your cell membranes. And I've studied how this process works in the ocean and how it controls how productive the ocean can be on over 50 research expeditions all around the world, from the Arctic to the Antarctic. And I've taken what I've learned about microbes in the ocean and I've used it to try to help wastewater treatment plants produce cleaner effluent. Now, in doing all of this, I was like a lot of scientists in this country. I was a college professor. I taught classes, I served on student committees, and I did research, mostly funded by the federal government. So many taxpayers in the room, I thank you. Know that I gave you my very best. In 2012, I was asked to serve at the National Science Foundation, the federal agency that is charged with funding basic research across all science and engineering disciplines. I served as Director of Ocean Sciences, where I managed a budget of $356 million. That's a lot of money. Until you think, for a country this size, that's about $1 a person. You probably spent 2 to 4 times that the last time you bought a cup of coffee. It's not enough. It's not even close to enough. Now, there are other federal agencies that also fund research, but they too are grossly underfunded. So take harmful algal blooms. There's one raging in the Gulf of Mexico right now, and it's been going on for months. These harmful blooms kill fish, marine mammals, and occasionally even people. An economic analysis of the cost of these blooms in the most comprehensive report I found is that they cost the country $645 million every year. And despite the havoc they wreak in terms of tourism and fisheries and people's lives, the federal program that is in charge of funding research to remediate them or mitigate them wasn't able to fund any new projects in 5 out of the last 10 years because of budget cuts. We can't keep doing this. Another part of my story is that I was elected president of an international scientific society. And during my service, I got very interested on where the US stood compared to other countries. And we are falling behind. Since the Second World War, the investment we've made in science and technology has powered our economy, contributed to our national security, but not anymore to the same degree. Consider science literacy. In the last 20 years, the United States has fallen to 24th in the world. When it comes to mathematics, we're 39th. 39th. Other countries are making investments and increasing their investments in science and research, including ocean research, China being the largest. And I believe that this country needs to do the same if we're going to stay ahead. Which brings me to my most recent chapter in my story, becoming the head of Bigelow, an amazing place. Now, historically, independent laboratories like Bigelow have been some of the most impactful in terms of the research they do, because the scientists can focus on research. Not all of the other things that took up so much of my time and that I loved about being a college professor. But the price for the freedom to just focus on research is that they are basically the science equivalent of living paycheck to paycheck. If you don't do great science, you don't get your grant funded, which means you don't get paid. These people are at the top of their game. They have to be to survive. But I'm worried, will they? In the past couple of years, we have been facing the threat of double-digit cuts and complete elimination of research programs that fund the study of our own planet, including oceanography. This can't continue. Imagine a world where we are able to feed the 10 billion people expected to be on this planet in just 30 years. Because we invested now in how to develop the techniques to sustainably farm the ocean through aquaculture. Imagine a world where your child is cured of a disease using a drug produced by an ocean microbe, because we invested today in harnessing the incredible genetic potential in the millions of microorganisms that are in every drop of seawater. We can make that world a reality, but we have to increase our investment in research to do it. And everyone in this room can help. First, you can vote. In 2 days, you can vote. And vote for politicians that support science funding. And since so few of them even bring it up, ask them, get it on their radar screen, and ask them where they stand. Second, give. Give of your time or money to programs or institutions or causes that support environmental or ocean science. You may think it won't make a difference, but there is power in numbers when people get involved. And the added bonus is, if you give to a cause, you will pay attention to it. And we desperately need people to pay attention right now. And finally, we all need to embrace our middle child, and we need to become peacekeepers. I was repeatedly told not to use the word environment in this talk because it's a toxic word in Washington, D.C. today. That's crazy. We are facing a horrific challenge in terms of what's going on in our ocean. And the consequences of failing to address it effectively will be horrific for this country and this planet. As a woman who has traveled the world doing my work, I am convinced that the United States of America, as imperfect as our union may be, especially at the moment, is humanity's best hope. We have got to empower our scientists to restore the ocean and capture its potential. And to do that, we all need to stop taking sides, and we need to start listening to each other. I believe in science, I believe in this country, and I believe in good old-fashioned American ingenuity. If we support our scientists, we will restore the ocean, and we will lead the world to a healthier and more prosperous future. Thank you.